Hey guys, so I'm going to go through the EDL 850 case study, analyzing, the threats that were made against a teacher, and look at this from the view of a school administrator. So to start off, we're looking at what we actually know about this case. First off, if a Facebook page was created that used foul language and threatened Miss Tate, Miss Tate has had complaints from both students and parents about her classroom management, her class rigor, and the stress that she has caused students in her class. Dr. Smith, who is the principal at the school, kind of whose view I'm going to look at this from, has had conversations with Miss Tate about how she can improve her classroom, both with the rigor, how she can reduce the stress of her students, and there's not really been a change since those meetings. After the page was created, Miss Tate contacted the principal directly. The principal made printouts of the page, which is a good move in case it got taken down quickly, so there's still evidence of it. With that being said, Miss Tate suspects a certain student of creating the page, although she can't prove it. And definitely one of the big things that we know is that Miss Tate and Dr. Smith agree that this is a serious issue, that needs to get to the bottom of it, and that potentially they could have to talk to the district tech people to see if they can track down the IP address of who made this page to get to the bottom of it, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Some of the things that we need to know looking at this. One thing, what was the intent behind the Facebook page? Is it a prank? Is it a kid venting? Or is it actually a serious threat? That can kind of impact a lot of things moving forward, especially with some Supreme Court rulings. Another thing that we need to know is the school policies on threats from students. Is there something in that school board policy that's laid out that has to happen if there's a threat? Or is this kind of at the principal's discretion? Something that might help that we don't know is, have students like this page? Is it a public page? Is it a private page? If students have liked it, can they help the principal find the creator? Are there students in the class who have the ability to create an anonymous Facebook page? Obviously, with the affluent school that it's in, most of them have access to technology. That doesn't seem like a question. But how many people kind of would go this far, be able to create it on their own? And something else we need to know, have there been other instances of this happening at the school? Or is this kind of the first case? That's going to, again, if this is the first time that it's happened, it's going to shape how the situation's handled moving forward if it does happen again. If there's already been other instances, there's some groundwork that's been laid that'll help the principal with the proceedings. So boiling it down with what we know, what we need to know, basically the problem here is that there's been an anonymous Facebook page that was created to threaten a staff member of the school. That's really the main issue. There's been a threat made to a staff member. With the investigation, that needs to be taken seriously, and they need to get to the bottom of who made that page, and that's kind of what we're going to look at and the problem we're going to solve throughout this presentation. So looking again as this future school leader, the plan of action that I would take in this scenario, there's about 6 steps here that I've kind of outlined that we'll go through. So number one, we're going to talk to Miss Tate face-to-face Monday morning when they get back from that long weekend to identify exactly what the problem is so that we are on the same page. I already identified the problem for you guys, but I think it's important for the administrator and the teacher to be on the same page, decide exactly what problem they're trying to solve, what we're trying to figure out, and then let her know in that meeting about the rest of the steps I'm going to take, which will not involve her presence in the meeting. I think this is an issue for the administrator, potentially school resource officer. I would keep Miss Tate out of it because that will make more of an emotional connection to this problem when it needs to be thought through rationally, following correct procedure. So this, after I would talk to Miss Tate, my second step would be to talk to the school resource officer if one is stationed at the school, which a lot of schools seem to have, and see if the police should become involved since the threat was made. Again, I think this is an important step to take to make sure everything's above board. There is that, potential that you have to look at with privacy of kids on the internet. However, looking at the content of the Facebook page, I think it's important to have that school resource officer be involved. Even if it's technically not a legal matter, having the school resource officer involved in the situation when talking to the kids and their parents, which we'll get to, I think it shows the seriousness of the issue, and it kind of helps drive home the point about why students should not be doing this, even though it might not technically be against the law, which again we'll get to. The third thing I would do is, and these steps 3 and 4 kind of go hand in hand, kind of talk to Miss Tate about what students she suspects. Obviously we have William, kind of some other students who maybe have been acting up in her class, and then also go through the records and see what students and what parents have complained about her to me. I think that's going to kind of narrow down the list of students who have motive to do this. And once we have that list made, then I would start first off contacting the parents. This is a high school. Letting them know what the situation is, letting them know that I'm going to be talking to their child, potentially with a school resource officer in the room, and letting them know that if they want to be a part of this process, since again their students are minors, that they are allowed to do that. So those steps kind of go hand in hand. I think especially with the school resource officer being involved, I think it's very important to let the parents know what's happening, why we're talking to their kid, so that they don't hear another version of the story when their kid goes home that night and tells them, hey, I had to talk to a police officer today. So notifying the parents, I think, is going to be really important. After that, I think once we go through all the meetings, we talk to the students, potentially their parents, we give them the chance to come forward and admit to it, and no one does, then I think we're going to have to take that next step, work with the district technicians as well as potentially again the police to see if we can find out where the page was created. Hopefully that with the seriousness of it, the student comes forward and lets us know, because again they're high school students. Most likely they made a mistake and didn't realize how serious it was, and going forward we can fix that. Again, once either the student admits to doing it or we've tracked them down with the district's help, you could again notify the parents about the findings, how we found it, and then move forward with the disciplinary process, whether that's in regards following board procedure or setting a standard. But again, once the student's found, we're going to have to go through that disciplinary process. Some of the strategies that I was going to implement throughout this, again, keeping parents notified and involved. Again, it's dealing with minors. I think this keeps it above board. They don't have to hear things secondhand, and they know exactly why their student's being talked to. When talking with the students, you're going to have to remind them, I think, at the start of the meeting how serious the issue of anonymous threats are. Like I said before, they're high school students, they're impulsive. Most likely it was someone blowing off Steve that went too far. And they don't realize how, in the real world, how big of an issue this could be. So remind them right off the bat so they understand why this is being taken so seriously, why there's police involved, and hopefully that will help them come forward and understand. Clearly tell the parents and students the consequence will be less severe if the guilty students or students come forward. I think this is a good strategy because it gives incentive for the student to come forward. Again, like I said, it's a serious issue that needs to be dealt with. But at the same time, I think it's important to act with fairness towards that student, and lowering that consequence is a good life lesson. And then keeping Miss Tate away from the investigations that will bring emotions into it. I think you got to be very straightforward. You can't let her become emotional when meeting with the parents. She's upset about the issue, and we can't have that when we're trying to find out who did it. So the resolution to this case, when the guilty student is identified, a few things should occur. Number one, the student should face the consequences laid out in the district policy about threats. The student will have a conversation with administration and the school resource officer about the seriousness of the event. And then the student should have a threat assessment session with the guidance counselor. I think those three things are important. There was a threat, so having the counselor go through that threat assessment has to happen because a threat was made, to make sure that it's not serious. This process should be used as a learning experience for the student. Like I said, they're impulsive. They're high school kids. Yes, this is a big mistake to make, but it is a mistake. They are kids. They need to learn from it moving forward so the issue doesn't happen with them again and with other students in the school. So my feelings about this: the first thought is the safety of one of my staff members. That's paramount when moving forward. We need to make sure we keep my staff members safe, keep them away from threats, and taking this as a serious threat. A little bit conflicted because, again, they're high school students. The student's probably angry and did not intend to act on the threat, but at the same time, we have to treat it like it's a very serious threat in order to keep Miss Tate safe. Again, I thought this was a great teaching lesson for the student who made the page and for the other students about how serious this issue is, of how easy it is to be anonymous online and to say these things. It's easy to do that, but there's also these really big consequences that could come with it. So this is a great opportunity to teach that. And then I was also conflicted on whether or not to bring law enforcement into the case. But I think it shows the seriousness of if, again, a student walks in and sees a cop in the room in the meeting, they're going to understand it's a serious issue, and I think it needs to be treated like that. So some open issues. Will Miss Tate feel comfortable with the threatening student back in her classroom? So there potentially has to be a schedule change. Has a student made other threats that the school is not aware of? That's also part of that threat assessment. Not only did they make threats, could they potentially do it again? Are they a danger to other students and staff members? So having that threat assessment is crucial. Obviously, the Facebook page needs to be taken down. And then think about how we could prevent this in the future. So those are some open issues that administration, myself, and the other people in this situation would have to talk about and deal with moving forward to create a safe environment. So ways that success is happening through intent would be following the school board policy on the consequences, notifying the parents of this situation, and keeping Miss Tate out of the meeting. Success through fairness is giving each student a chance to come forward and admit to making the page, not singling out one student, talking to multiple students who have complained, and having multiple people present in the meeting to keep things above board and not just have the principal's point of view. And then lastly, the success through ethics, maintaining relationship with staff members. notifying her what's happening, not jumping to conclusions.